Part I. The grain and the grit. The smell of sawdust is the only thing that keeps me anchored in this city. It is an honest scent, mostly keyline dried white oak this week, grounded by the sharp tang of black walnut. It hangs in the air of the industrial loft I share with Leo, fighting a silent battle against the permeating odor of 3-day-old pepperoni pizza and the metallic smell of Chicago rain seeping through the single-pane factory windows. I am Kaisen Kelly. I am 23 years old, according to my driver's license, but my lower back feels 40, and my patience often feels like it belongs to a man who has already retired to a cabin in the Upper Peninsula. I work 6 days a week at the Foundry, a high-end timber framing and custom furniture shop in the West Loop. My days are spent restoring Victorian trim for people who have never held a hammer in their lives and building live-edge dining tables that cost more than the truck I drive to deliver them. I come home to this loft, a chaotic, high-ceilinged space in a converted textile factory that we can barely afford, and I try to build a semblance of a life out of the scraps. Leah Ross, my roommate and best friend since our freshman year at UIUC, is currently effectively comatose on the microfiber sofa. It is 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Leo is 23 as well, but he inhabits the age differently. He wears his youth like a loose, comfortable garment, careless and loud, frayed at the edges. I wear mine like a steel-toed work boot, laced tight, functional, and usually covered in dust. I stood at the kitchen island, a massive slab of butcher block I had refinished myself the week we moved in. I was sanding the edge of a coaster I was crafting from a scrap of curly maple. The rhythmic shh of the 220 grit sandpaper was my metronome. It was the only way I knew to slow down the rush of time. I was waiting for the buzzer. Leo had forgotten, naturally. He always forgot. But his mother was coming, Alexandra Ross. I had met her once, briefly, on moving day 2 years ago. She had been a blur of expensive perfume, terrifying efficiency, and high-end tailoring, directing the movers with hand signals while Leo stood around eating a bagel he'd found in his pocket. I remembered her eyes, sharp, intelligent, a shade of gray that reminded me of Lake Michigan in November. I remembered thinking that she looked like she belonged in a museum, framed in gold leaf, while Leo and I belonged in a frat house basement. Leo shifted on the couch, letting out a groan that sounded tectonic. He pulled a throw pillow over his head, shielding himself from the gray afternoon light. "Dude," he mumbled, his voice muffled by the polyester fabric. "Is it noon yet? Please tell me it's noon." "It's 2, I said, not stopping my sanding. The wood felt warm under my thumb. "Your mom will be here in 5 minutes." Leo shot up like he'd been tased. His hair was a bird's nest of blonde curls, his eyes bloodshot and wide with panic. "Today? That's today? That's today. Saturday. The inspection. Oh God. She's gonna kill me. Look at this place." He gestured wildly at the living room, which looked like a bomb had gone off inside a GameStop. "Kai, help me. Please. I'll cover the utilities this month. Just the boxes, the cans, the shame." He looked at me with those puppy dog eyes that had gotten him out of trouble with professors, bouncers, and ex-girlfriends for 5 years. It was hard to stay mad at Leo. He was chaos personified, yes, but he was also the guy who drove me to the ER at 3 a.m. when I put a chisel through my thumb last winter, and who sat in the waiting room for 6 hours making terrible jokes to keep me from passing out from the pain. He was loyal, even if he was a disaster. "I got the kitchen," I said, putting down the sandpaper and blowing the dust off the maple. We moved. It was a practice drill, a synchronized dance of panic. I wiped down the counters, hid the stack of unpaid bills in a drawer, and opened a window to let the clean scent of sawdust mix with the rain. Leo ran around like a headless chicken, shoving laundry into the closet and spraying Febreze with reckless abandon, trying to mask the scent of stale beer. The buzzer screamed just as Leo threw the last pizza box into the recycling bin. He froze, staring at the intercom like it was a bomb. "Do I look hungover? You look like you died yesterday and nobody told you," I said honestly. "Go wash your face. Put on a clean shirt. I'll let her in." Leo bolted for the bathroom. I took a breath, centering myself. I dusted my hands off on my jeans, trying to get the last of the maple dust out of the fabric. I walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Hello? Kaisen?" The voice was clear, melodic, and startlingly familiar. It cut through the static of the intercom like a bell. "It's Alexandra." Leo isn't answering his phone. "Is he alive?" "He's washing up," I said. "Come on up. Alexandra. Thank you. The lock buzzed open. I stood by the door, waiting. The hallway of our building was old, echoing with the sounds of the city and the groaning of the freight elevator. I heard the ding. I heard the distinct, rhythmic click-clack of heels on the concrete floor. I opened the door. Alexandra Ross stood there, and for a second, the breath caught in my throat. She was wearing a trench coat the color of camel hair, cinched tightly at the waist to accentuate a silhouette that was both elegant and commanding. Leather boots added 3 inches to her height. Her hair, a rich mahogany that caught the hallway light, was loose today, framing a face that was more striking than I remembered. She was 41. She looked tired. There was a tightness around her mouth, a shadow in her eyes, but she wore her exhaustion like armor. She held a bottle of wine in one hand and a reusable grocery bag in the other. "Kaisen," she said. A small, genuine smile touched her lips, softening the sharp angles of her face. "You got taller." "It's the boots," I lied. I was barefoot. I stood 6'4" in my socks. "And Leo?" she asked, looking past me into the cavernous apartment. "Present," Leo announced, emerging from the bathroom with a wet face and a t-shirt that was only slightly wrinkled. Alexandra looked at her son. She sighed. It was a heavy sound, the sound of a parent who loves their child fiercely, but doesn't necessarily like their choices right now. "Leo," she said, stepping inside. "You look like a raccoon." "Thanks," Leo said, grinning and going in for a hug. She hugged him back, stiffly at first, then squeezing him tight. It was a small moment, a flicker of intimacy that reminded me that, despite the friction, they were family, a unit. And I was just the observer, the roommate, the guy who paid the electric bill. "Can I come in?" she asked, pulling away and smoothing her coat. "Or is the floor lava?" "We cleared a path," I said, stepping aside and closing the heavy steel door behind her. She walked in. The scent of her rain, expensive wool, and something floral like jasmine drifted past me. It filled the entryway, drowning out the lingering smell of Febreze and sawdust. It smelled like a world I couldn't afford. Part I. The inspection. She didn't sit down. She didn't take off her coat immediately. She marched into the kitchen, setting the grocery bag on the island with a purpose. "I assumed the fridge would be empty," she said, starting to unpack. "So I brought actual food. Do you boys eat vegetables? Or is it strictly carbohydrates and hope?" "Kaisen cooks," Leo said, flopping onto the couch as if the exertion of washing his face had drained him. "I cook," I confirmed, moving to help her. "Leo eats." She glanced at me sideways. Her eyes lingered on my hands as I took a carton of eggs from her. My hands were rough, calloused from the chisels and the saws, stained faintly with walnut dye. "I remember," she said. "You made that table, didn't you? The one in the hallway." "I did. It's good work," she said. She ran a manicured hand along the butcher block counter I was leaning against. She checked the seam where 2 pieces of wood joined. She didn't find a gap. "White oak?" "Ash," I corrected. "Stained with a custom mix to match the floor." "It's harder than oak." "Ah, durability," she nodded, approving. "Smart." She was an architect. I knew that. Leo talked about her sometimes, usually complaining about her high standards or her obsession with structure. She specialized in historical preservation. She looked at buildings and saw the bones, the history, the failures. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me. A 23-year-old carpenter in a flannel shirt? Or just her son's oversized roommate? "I need to measure the windows," she said suddenly, abandoning the groceries. "Renovation?" Leo asked, perking up. "You're finally buying the unit?" "I'm considering it," she said, pulling a laser measure from her purse. It was a Leica, a professional tool. "Scuffed from use. Mr. Henderson is letting this building rot. I've set up a holdings trust to evaluate the asset. If the numbers work, the trust will put in an offer. I can fix the plumbing properly if I control the walls. But I need to verify the square footage first." She looked at me. "Do you mind if I look around? I won't disturb your space." "Go ahead," I said. She laughed. It was a warm, surprising sound that made the kitchen feel smaller, warmer. I raised him. "Kaisen, I know exactly what his closet looks like. It looks like a landfill." She walked around the main living space. She touched the walls. She tapped the exposed brick, checking for moisture. She aimed the laser at the ceiling, frowning at the readout. I went back to my coaster. I picked up the sandpaper. I watched her. She wasn't just looking at the apartment, she was fixing it in her head. She was straightening the lines, reinforcing the beams, imagining a version of this place that wasn't falling apart. She moved with a confidence that was intimidating. "This beam," she said, pointing to the main support timber near the ceiling. "It's original 1920s? 1918, I said without looking up. "Douglas fir. Old growth. You can tell by the grain density. They don't grow trees like that anymore. It's practically iron." She turned to look at me slowly. Her eyes narrowed slightly, reassessing. "You know timber. I frame houses," I said. "I know wood." "Show me," she said. She walked over to the island. She picked up the coaster I was sanding. It was a simple thing, just a square of maple, but I had chamfered the edges to catch the light, polishing it until the grain rippled like water. She ran her thumb over the edge. It was smooth as glass. "This is seamless," she murmured. "Did you do this by hand?" "Machines are faster," I said. "Hands are better? You lose the feel of the grain with a sander. You can't feel the heat." She looked up at me. We were close. The island was small. I could see the flecks of gold in her gray eyes. I could see the slight smudge of mascara on her lower lid, a sign of a long day or maybe a long life. "You're an old soul, Kaisen Kelly," she said softly. "I'm just tired," I said, looking down at the wood because looking at her felt dangerous. "Me too," she admitted. The armor slipped for a second. Her shoulders dropped. "God, me too." For a second, the air between us felt thin, charged. It wasn't explicitly sexual, but it was intimate. It was recognition. Two people who appreciated the weight of things, standing in a kitchen that smelled of maple dust. Then Leo groaned from the couch. "Mom, do we have any Advil? My head is splitting." Alexandra blinked. The moment broke like a dropped glass. She set the coaster down. "In my purse," she said, her voice snapping back to maternal efficiency. "I should measure the bathroom." "Good luck," I said. "Watch out for the loose tile near the tub." Part 3. The leak. 2 weeks later, the ceiling fell in. Not literally, but effectively. A pipe burst in the unit above us during a violent thunderstorm. Water began to drip, then pour, into our living room at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. Leo panicked. He ran around putting pots under the leaks, screaming about his gaming console and his vintage sneakers. I didn't panic. Panic doesn't stop water. Physics does. I went to the basement. I found the main shutoff valve for the riser, a rusted wheel that hadn't been turned in a decade. I used my monkey wrench. I killed the water. When I came back up, Leo was on the phone. "Mom, it's flooding. Everything is wet." He sounded like he was 6 years old. I grabbed him up. "Leo, hang up. Grab the towels." "Towels." Now. He dropped the phone and grabbed the towels. We worked in silence for 20 minutes, soaking up the water, moving the furniture. Leo wasn't useless. When push came to shove, he worked hard. He just needed direction. He needed a foreman. Half an hour later, the door unlocked. Alexandra arrived. She was wearing a yellow raincoat over what looked like silk pajamas. Her hair was in a messy bun, wet strands sticking to her neck. She looked frantic, wild. "Where is it?" she demanded, storming in. "It stopped," I said. I was standing on a ladder, inspecting the drywall damage with a flashlight. "I cut the main, but the drywall is toast. We need to open it up to prevent mold." Alexandra looked at Leo, who was sitting on the dry side of the couch, holding a wet towel. He looked miserable. "I'm sorry, Mom," Leo said quietly. "I should have called Henderson first." She walked over and squeezed his shoulder. "It's okay. You called me. That's what matters." She looked up at me, up on the ladder. "You cut the main?" she asked. "Yes. And I called the super. He's not picking up. He never picks up." "Henderson is useless," she spat. She walked over to the ladder. She looked up at me. "Can you patch it?" "Temporarily? I can do better than patch it," I said. "I have spare sheetrock in my truck. And joint compound. If we don't seal it tonight, the humidity will warp the floorboards." "Do it," she said. "I'll pay for materials. Leo, hold the flashlight for Kaisen." "I got it," I said. Leo hesitated. He looked at his mom, then at me. You sure, Kai? Yeah. Go. Leo disappeared into his room. It was just me and Alexandra. And a hole in the ceiling? I'll hold the light, she said. For the next 3 hours, we worked. I cut the rod out. I measured the replacement piece. I screwed it in. I taped. I mudded. She stood below me, handing me tools, holding the work light steady. She didn't complain about the dust settling on her raincoat. She didn't check her phone. She watched me work. You have good hands, she said quietly, as I feathered the edge of the joint compound with a wide knife. I paused. My hand froze on the trowel. They're rough, I said. They're Carpenter's hands. They're capable, she corrected. There's a difference. Most men I know, they have soft hands. They pay people to have hands like yours. I looked down. She was looking up. The angle was intimate. The work light cast sharp shadows on her face, highlighting the curve of her cheekbone. You shouldn't be doing this, I said. You're the architect. You design the palaces. You don't patch the leaks. Someone has to hold the light, she said. And sometimes the architect needs to see how the sausage is made. I climbed down. I was covered in white dust. She reached out instinctively and brushed a smudge of plaster off my shoulder. Her touch was electric. It went through my t-shirt like a live wire, grounding me and shocking me at the same time. She pulled her hand back quickly. Her eyes widened, just a fraction. Thank you, Kaisen, she said. Her voice was slightly breathless. For saving the floor, for taking care of Leo. He's my best friend, I said. I look out for him. I know, she said. I wish he was a little more like you. He's 23, I said, defending him. I'm just old for my age. Yes, she said, her gaze searching my face. You are. She checked her watch. It's 1 a.m. I should go. I'll walk you to your car. I can handle myself. I know, I said, but I'm walking you anyway. It's Chicago. She didn't argue. We walked down the stairs in silence. At her car, she turned. Good night, Kaisen. Good night, Alexandra. I didn't call her Mrs. Ross. And she didn't correct me. Part IV. The eviction notice. The fallout came 3 days later. Mr. Henderson, the landlord, didn't like that I had fixed his ceiling. He claimed I had performed unauthorized modifications to the structure. He claimed I had violated the lease. He sent an eviction notice. 30 days. Leo called his mom. Again. This time, she came in business mode. She arrived at 6 p.m. on Friday, wearing a charcoal power suit and stilettos that clicked like weapons on the hardwood floor. She sat at our kitchen table, reading the eviction notice. I sat opposite her. Leo paced, looking guilty. He can't do this, Alexandra said, tossing the paper down. It's retaliatory. You mitigated damages. He says I used non-code materials, I said calmly. He's lying. I used 5, 8-inch, fire-rated drywall. It's better than what was there. I know, she said. I saw it. It's seamless. She looked at me. There was a shared understanding between us, a language of codes and structures that Leo didn't speak. I'll handle Henderson, she said. I'll threaten to send a city inspector to check the rest of the building. He'll fold. Mom, just buy the place, Leo interrupted. You said you would. Then you can be our landlord and we won't have to deal with this. Leo, stop, she snapped. Buying a building with structural issues isn't a charity act. It's a business decision. And right now, the only asset in this apartment worth investing in is the maintenance. She gestured to me. Leo frowned. What does that mean? It means Kaisen saved the asset, she said. Go play your game, Leo. The adults are talking. Leo huffed. Fine. Whatever. He retreated to his room and slammed the door. We were alone at the table. The silence stretched. I'm sorry, she said, rubbing her temples. He's spoiled. I did that. I tried to give him everything I didn't have. He's young, I said. He'll learn. He felt bad about the leak. He bought the pizza tonight. You bought the pizza? She countered. I saw the receipt on the counter. I shrugged. He tried. She looked at me. Her gaze dropped to my hands, resting on the table. They were scarred, stained with walnut dye from the shop. I'm tired of boys, Kaisen, she whispered. It was a confession. It hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. I'm tired of cleaning up messes. I'm tired of being the only one who knows where the shut-off valve is. I reached out. I placed my hand over hers. I didn't hold it. I just covered it. A shield. You don't have to clean up this one, I said. I fixed the ceiling. I'll fix the landlord. You don't have to be the architect today. You can just be here. She stared at my hand. She didn't pull away. She turned her palm up, lacing her fingers through mine. Her skin was soft, cool. Mine was rough, hot. The contrast was dizzying. I like it here, she said. It smells like sawdust. It's messy. It's real. She squeezed my hand. Then, she let go. She pulled back, sitting up straighter, putting the armor back on. I have to go, she said. I have a dinner. A date. The word hit me like a hammer. Date. Of course. She was 41. She was beautiful. She was successful. She wasn't sitting around waiting for her son's roommate. Have fun, I said, my voice flat. It's business, she said quickly. Too quickly. Just a developer. Boring. Okay. She lingered at the door. Lock the deadbolt, Kaisen. Henderson has keys. I always lock the door, I said. Part V. The intrusion. The renovation became real. Alexandra's LLC finalized the purchase of the unit 2 weeks later. It was a power move. She slammed the paperwork on Henderson's desk and effectively fired him. Now, she was my landlord. And she was over all the time. She came to measure. She came to check samples. She came, ostensibly, to consult with Leo about paint colors. But Leo was never there. He was avoiding the construction talk. It was just us. We developed a rhythm. She would arrive at 5 p.m., just as I was getting home from the shop. I would make coffee strong, black, the way she liked it. We would sit on the floor with blueprints spread out between us. It wasn't romantic. It was functional. It was competent. But the air was getting thinner. I found myself changing my shirt before coming home. I found her lingering longer than necessary. Then came the party. 3 weeks later, Leo threw a party while I was working a late shift. When I came home at midnight, the apartment was thumping with bass. 20 people I didn't know were drinking cheap beer on my rug. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and put on noise-canceling headphones. I was working on a design for a drafting table, a complex piece with hidden drawers. Around 1 a.m., my door handle rattled. "Kai, open up!" Leo yelled, slurring. I opened the door. Leo stumbled in, looking sheepish. Behind him stood Alexandra. She had come to check on the noise complaints. She looked furious. She was wearing the trench coat again, her eyes blazing. "Party's over," she yelled into the living room. "Everyone out, now, or I call the police." The crowd dispersed like roaches. Leo collapsed onto the couch, muttering apologies. Alexandra stood in the hallway, fuming. She saw me standing in my doorway. "I am going to kill him," she muttered. "I am going to evict my own son." "He didn't mean for it to get this big," I said. "Stop making excuses for him," she snapped. She turned on me. "You live here too. Why didn't you stop it?" "I was working," I said. "Working on what? Video games?" "No," I said, stung. "Furniture." She looked at me. Then she looked past me, into my room. The door was open. She saw the bed. The walnut platform bed I had built over 6 months. Low, sleek, with hand-cut joinery that fit together like a puzzle. She saw the drafting table I was designing. She saw the bookshelf, perfectly leveled, filled with books on design and timber framing. The room was pristine. It smelled of cedar and beeswax. It was a monastery compared to the zoo outside. "Oh," she whispered. She stepped inside. She didn't ask this time. She walked to the bed. She ran her hand along the footboard. "Hand cut," she said. "No screws. Tension and gravity," I said, standing by the door. "That's what holds it together." She looked at me. "It's beautiful." She sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress didn't creak. It was solid. "It's a sanctuary," she said, in the middle of a mess. "I need a place to think," I said. "I haven't had a place to think in 20 years, she admitted. She looked up at me. Her eyes were vulnerable. The anger was gone. "Can I stay? Just for a minute? It's quiet here." I looked at the living room where Leo was snoring. I looked at her. "Alexandra," I said, "we can't do this here." "Do what?" "You sitting on my bed, while your son is passed out 20 feet away." She stiffened. I'm just sitting. I know, I said. But I respect Leo, and I respect you. And if you stay in here, with the door closed, the lines get blurry, and I don't want to blur them in a way I can't fix. She stood up. She smoothed her coat. You're right. Of course, I'm sorry. She walked toward the door. She paused as she passed me. We were inches apart. You're a good man, Kaisen, she whispered. Better than I deserve as a tenant, better than Leo deserves as a friend. I'm just a carpenter, I said. You're the only thing holding this place up, she said, and then she left. Part Vi. The commission. I didn't see her for a week. She texted me once regarding a plumbing inspection. Formal. Professional. I worked. I sanded wood until my fingers bled. I poured all the frustration into the grain. Then, on Friday, a letter arrived. It wasn't an eviction notice. It was a contract. I opened it. It was a commission. A formal request for a custom dining table, live edge walnut, 10 feet long, complex joinery. The client was Alexandra Ross. The delivery address was her home in Lincoln Park. The note attached was handwritten. I need a table that will last. Something real. I trust the craftsman. Please accept. A. It was an olive branch. It was an invitation. But it was also a test. A professional boundary. I showed it to Leo. Dude, Leo said, looking at the deposit check. My mom hired you? That's awesome. She's super picky. She must really like your stuff. She appreciates the structure, I said carefully. You gonna do it? I looked at the check. I looked at the signature. Yeah, I said. I'm gonna build it. Part VII. The foundation. It took me 3 weeks to build the table. I put everything into it. I selected the wood myself, finding a slab with a chaotic, beautiful grain pattern. I cut the dovetails by hand. I sanded it to 2000 grit until it felt like silk. When it was done, I loaded it into my truck. I drove to her house. It was a brownstone, elegant and imposing. I rang the bell. Alexandra answered. She wasn't wearing a suit. She was wearing jeans and a cashmere sweater. She looked nervous. You brought it, she said. I finished the job. I carried the table inside. It was heavy, but I managed it. I set it up in her dining room. It transformed the space. It added warmth, weight, gravity. She ran her hand along the edge. It's perfect, she said. It's strong, I said. It'll hold whatever you put on it. She looked up at me. We were alone in her house. No, Leo. No rain. No roommates. Is the commission finished? She asked. Delivery is complete. So, you're not my contractor anymore? And you're not my tenant, she said. I signed the papers yesterday. The deed is in a trust for Leo now. He owns the apartment. I stared at her. You gave Leo the apartment? I wanted the slate clean, she said. No leverage. No strings. No conflict. She stepped around the table. She walked up to me. I didn't want to cross a line in the loft, she said. I respect you too much for that. I know. But this is my house, she said. And I'm not your landlord here. I'm just Alexandra. And I'm just Kaisen. I want to see your room, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But not the one in the loft. I want to see the one you build next. The one that's ours. That's a big project, I said. It takes time. I'm an architect, she smiled, reaching for my hand. I'm good at long-term planning. I took her hand. It felt right. It felt solid. Where do we start? I asked. We start with dinner, she said. On this table. I didn't bring food. I did, she said. And this time, I cooked it myself. Just then, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out. A text from Leo. Hey man, Mom told me about the deed. That was crazy. Also, don't break her heart or I'll have to try and beat you up. And we both know how that ends. Build it right, Kai. I smiled. I showed her the phone. She read it. Tears pricked her eyes. He's a good kid, she whispered. He's growing up, I said. We all are. I put the phone away. I looked at her, and I knew that whatever we built together, it was going to stand. The end.